Hello everyone, happy fall and welcome back to my channel. So I'm taking a bit of a detour on this video. Now if you're a miniature maker or a crafter of any kind, you'll probably resonate with this, but I have hit a bit of project fatigue with the dollhouse. And so I'm finding that I'm just not as creative as I want to be. And usually when that happens to me, I have to take a step back and do something else for a little bit. Now I love to paint, so sometimes I'm painting, sometimes I'm doing a kit, but this time I thought I would invite you along on the journey as I make a birthday gift for one of my girls. Now I don't need to worry about spoiling any surprises because she knows it's coming, but I thought maybe you'd like to see something a little bit different. So first of all, this is in a different scale than I normally work in. I'm generally a 1/12 scale, and this project is going to be in half scale or 1/24 scale. Now this isn't going to be tutorial necessarily. I'm not going to be providing all of the measurements for the project. And I'm also working with cardboard, which I have never done before. So it's a bit of a learning curve for me as well. Now my daughter is a huge fan of the show Friends. And when I say huge, I mean huge fan of the show. So I thought she'd really like something like this for her bookshelf. Now don't worry, the dollhouse isn't going anywhere. These videos will be kind of intermingled with those normal videos. Regardless, I hope you enjoy. I'm starting by drawing out a template for the floor plan. I've decided to leave out some of the apartment. For example, I'm not going to be including the bathroom, and I'm not going to be including the bedrooms either. I am going to, however, include the balcony because it was such a big part of the show. Using the template, I'm going to cut out 3 pieces of cardboard for the base. I'm making sure that I'm alternating the direction of the corrugation of the cardboard so that the base is more sturdy. So 2 layers are going to go vertically up and down, and then the middle layer will be horizontal. Now cutting out the cardboard is relatively easy with just an X-Acto knife. The only thing that I did find is that cardboard does tend to dull your blade, so you may end up having to change your blade once or twice throughout this process. Now if you're wondering where I got the measurements for the apartment from, I have to confess that I did cheat just a tiny bit. There is a kit for the Friends apartment, and when I was looking online, it does show the measurements, both the width and the length of that apartment. So those are the measurements that I'm using. I actually considered buying the kit, but I couldn't get past the $169 US price tag. For me, that's about $230, plus the cost of the shipping, which would have been about another $30. I just couldn't justify it when it's something that I thought I could make myself. I guess time will tell if I made the right decision. So my first 2 pieces are the exact same size as the template, but I decided to make my third or my bottom piece just a little bit bigger. So I've added about a centimeter or 10 millimeters all the way around the outside on 3 of the 4 sides. The only side that I didn't add it to was the front. I think this is going to make it easier to attach the walls since they'll have 2 surfaces to glue to instead of just 1. I've also left the balcony floor on the 3rd piece. I've also used the template to cut out 1 piece of poster board that I'll be using for the floor later on. I'll just put the poster board aside for a bit because I won't be doing the floor yet. I've decided to use 2-sided tape to put the base together, so then I don't have to worry about warping it all. I've also traced around so that I know exactly where the top 2 pieces should sit. Now you don't have to use 2-sided tape. I'm only using it because I have it. You can also use glue, of course. The only thing is, if you're going to glue it, you'll need to weight it down while the glue dries, otherwise it's going to curl up on you. Now this particular tape is super sticky, so there's no forgiveness if I get it into the wrong place. So I have to be very careful in making sure I line it all up before I allow the whole thing to have contact. Repeat that same process for the top layer. To create the walls, I'm using the same 3-ply method, alternating the corrugation of the cardboard. I needed to first measure each of the walls around the whole apartment. This, of course, tells me just how wide I need to make those pieces of cardboard. The instructions on that kit said that the wall should be 19 centimeters high. I've gone 20. It's just easier for me to remember, and a little bit of extra height never hurts when you're trying to look into a miniature room. So I've gone ahead and I've cut out 3 pieces for each section of the wall. I haven't glued them together yet because I need to figure out the doors and the windows. So all I've done so far is just tape them together. I've also numbered them 1 through 10, starting at the far left and going around, just so that I always knew that I was getting the right wall in the right spot. So I just want to talk about these wall pieces for a second, because obviously when you're using cardboard like this, you've got 2 edges of the walls that are quite exposed in that rough corrugated cardboard look, and you don't want that to show when your walls are complete. So some of the sides of these walls I'm going to have to fill in and cover, and other sides it doesn't matter because you won't see them. So just to give you an example of how the walls are going to go together and what I mean by those side pieces being exposed is piece number 1, obviously it's exposed in the front, but I don't need to worry about the back side of that piece because it's going to be covered up by wall number 2, if you can see what I mean here. On piece number 2, both those sides are going to be exposed because piece number 3 doesn't cover the exposed part of piece number 2. I hope that makes sense. Then I needed to determine which walls needed to be painted, and if painted, what color, and which walls didn't need any paint at all. For example, the bottom 2 pieces here, pieces 1 and 2, those would be painted purple, and those were around the door. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th piece won't be painted at all. If you're a fan of the show, you may recall that the kitchen was exposed brick. So I have a wallpaper to do the exposed brick on. The 2 pieces that were around the big window that went out onto the balcony, those were actually beige. And then, of course, the long wall where the TV was the purple. So I've started with the purple paint because that's the most fun. And as I said, I have not put together the 3 layers of each of the wall segments yet. So what I'm painting here is just 1 layer of cardboard. And when you're using a water-based paint, which is what acrylics are, the cardboard is definitely going to curl up on you. However, I have a plan to straighten them out as we go through the process. I ended up having to use 3 coats of paint to get full coverage on the cardboard. So the hallway outside of the apartment was beige. So I've painted what I needed to paint on the inside, the purple, and then on the bottom side, I've painted the beige because that will be the outside of the project. I, of course, did not paint the middle section. For the sections that will have the brick, I've only had to paint one side of the beige, which again will be inside of the hallway. I don't have to paint where the brick is going to go. So this piece number 1 is where the door was. Now I know it seems unusually tall. However, at the top of the door, they had this frosted window piece as well, which of course adds to the height. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going in and marking where the door itself will be. I'm going to do a cutout of both the purple side and the beige side, but I'm going to leave the center section of that wall uncut. I think it's just going to be easier to fit a doorway or a actual door in there if I've got that piece of cardboard in the middle. Now I've gone up about 4 inches from the bottom. That gives me a little bit of an allowance on the bottom of the door, as well as room for the window at the top. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut that piece out. I'll cut that same size cutout from the beige piece for this wall. Now when I put that centerpiece back in, I'll have a base to put those doors onto. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue all 3 of those pieces together. Because the centerpiece was never painted, it's of course nice and straight and sturdy. So that should pull these painted pieces nice and straight once I get them together, as long as I'm weighting it down at the end. So now that that's all dry, we can go ahead and start working on the outside edges that we talked about earlier. Now I've watched quite a few different techniques on how to cover up those cardboard edges, and they all worked very well. I just picked the one that I felt worked best for me, and that was using a wood filler. Now I'm not going to worry about the top because there will be a roof on the apartment, so these sections, it doesn't matter. But these other sections that are going to be exposed, of course, do need to be filled. Now there's a couple of reasons why I decided to use wood filler. The first one is that my wood filler is getting pretty old, and I feel like if I don't get it used up, it's probably going to end up in the garbage. So this is a great opportunity for me to use up this old stuff before it goes dry. The other reason that I like wood filler is because it's so easy to sand and I get such a nice smooth finish. And that's important too as well. So I started by trying to use this little glue paddle to put it in there. But at the end of the day, I felt like it was easier to just use my fingers. And so I would kind of layer it on with this wood paddle and then just smooth it out with my fingertips. After that first layer was dry, I went back over it a second time because there's all these little small holes where the corrugation of the cardboard is that didn't seem to want to fill the first time. So after I let it dry, it was much easier to fill in those last little pieces. So I've gone around all of the pieces now, and I have filled in all of the sides that are going to be exposed. I've also cut out the window that is above the sink, which I hadn't done yet, and everything is now glued together as far as the 3 pieces of cardboard itself. So I'm going to leave off here for this video. In the next video, we'll get all of the walls up and standing and maybe even get a start on the floor. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me again next time. Bye for now.